Perfect. Hi, everyone. Just gonna share my screen. Perfect. Everyone can see. Awesome. Great. So I'm going to talk about IRONMAN Wisconsin, do a deep dive into the course and talk about some of the pre-race tips and tricks. I'm Taylor Mahan-Rudolph. I've been a QT2 athlete since 2017. Multiple 70.3 and Ironman finisher. Been to the World Champs a couple times for 70.3. And I've also been a Madison resident for 15 years. Went to UW-Madison, so I know the city, know the campus super, super well. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have about that afterwards. I have not raced Ironman Wisconsin. It'll be my first time this year. But I have volunteered on the course a couple times and have been training on it every week. So know a lot about Madison, know a lot about this race and the course. And I'm excited to race it this year. So just an overview of the presentation. I won't spend too much time on QT2 Systems and the Five Cornerstones, but they're kind of woven into the first part of the presentation. I'll talk about some of the final weeks of training and then dive into pre-race stuff. So logistics, race day morning, course preview, and then some of the race day pacing and fueling tips. Cool. So this webinar is brought to you guys by QT2 Systems. There are 5 cornerstones that are around training, day-to-day nutrition and restoration, fueling, pacing, and mental fitness. And all of those will kind of be woven into this and kind of the pre-race last few weeks of training section. Great. So right now we're all in the final weeks. You might be in your peak week, you might be starting taper, but these are kind of the final few weeks before the race where you're doing all of your race specific sessions, getting those last few workouts in that are of like high importance. So it's really important to try and simulate race conditions as much as possible. For a race like Wisconsin, that means doing open water lake swim if you can before the race. Biking on some hillier terrain outside as much as possible off the trainer, just to get used to any technical riding. The run, nothing too specific, but try and focus on rolling terrain. There are a few hills on the course, so getting used to that. And then being really prepared for any sort of weather conditions. This race has been really hot. It's really hot here right now, but it's also been kind of cold and rainy and windy. So be prepared for anything and kind of train out in the elements these last couple of weeks. Also really important to do a dress rehearsal of all of your gear, make sure your bike is in good condition and test kind of your race kit, your helmet, and your race shoes just to make sure everything's comfortable and good to go. Some other notes about training these last couple weeks. Make sure you're kind of training to your race targets, really getting comfortable with that Ironman pace and heart rate, RPE, all of that good stuff. You're really not going to gain too much fitness. You're just kind of looking to top off and get a good feel for what that effort and what that pace is going to feel like. Resist the urge to kind of panic train and lean more on the side of being really recovered, really rested, and kind of ready for that big effort on the race day. Nutrition is also super important. So during this period before the race, don't do anything crazy, but, keep up with eating everything you need to be eating, eating your fruits and veggies, and making sure that you're really replenishing fluids after you work out so you don't go into any dehydrated state. Before any last longer workouts, make sure you have that replenishment meal that's high in carbs so that you're fully topped off for that effort. And continue making sleep and rest a high priority. So getting as much sleep as you can, and take any sort of nutritional supplements that you've been taking. It's not the time to start anything new, but just keep up with all those good habits that you've had while you've been in this training block. Note here on tapering down caffeine, each person's personal preference. I personally need my caffeine, so to each his own. Taper it down if it makes you race well. Otherwise, just stay the course and keep doing what you're doing. Cool. So a couple more notes on nutrition for kind of race week. Um, Again, don't change anything drastically from what you've been doing. Eat your normal diet as much as possible up until the couple days before the race when you might want a carbo load if that's something you do. If it's going to be hot, add extra salt to meals and keep hydrating. Normal fluids and any sort of sport drink, in addition to what you're losing from workouts. I like to do that in the morning before, especially if I know I'm going to be outside all day. Just bring some sort of electrolyte drink with you so that you're not getting too depleted while you're walking around and in any sort of hot conditions. Some people like to do a fat load 5 days prior. That can help with a carbo load that you start the couple days before the race. Again, if this is something you practice and you feel comfortable with, do it. Otherwise, just keep doing what you normally do before a big race. And then you're just going to want to rest and continue to sleep as much as you can. Couple other notes, continue to use the products that you've been using and that you're going to use for the race. You really want to train your gut with these last workouts. Just make sure everything feels comfortable and you're continuing to get used to what you're going to use for the race. If you use a recovery drink or some sort of recovery smoothie, continue to use that just to make sure that you're not getting depleted. And just to note that on race day and for a race like Ironman, fueling is the most, maybe not the most, but one of the most important things to make sure that you're getting the most out of yourself, and you're not kind of limiting yourself in one of the key areas that you have control over. And a note on mental fitness, which is super important for a big race like Ironman. Just a couple notes on kind of reducing external pressures and focusing on those controllable items. So, maybe taking an extra day off of work if you can, using more relaxation and kind of TV chill time to kind of clear your mind, whatever kind of strategies you need, just focus on what you can control, and kind of being in a good headspace before race week, and the days before the race. Some people like to use visualization and kind of think about like, what is that good race performance and kind of get in that mindset. Some people are much more goal oriented and like to have targets. It's kind of what works for each person, but good to go through what works for you before the race and kind of come up with that good plan and good mental headspace to get you in the right zone. Awesome. So we'll kind of go into some of the pre-race logistics right now. These are just things that are good to do before you travel to the race. I like to do it kind of, maybe in this next coming week, just to give yourself time if you need to like order anything or go to a bike shop. Next week would be a really good week to do that, just so you're not time crunched. I like to review the athlete guide. It looks like the most recent one hasn't been posted on the website yet, at least as of yesterday. So really, really hoping that comes soon. You can always look at last year's version just to get a good idea. So review the athlete guide, get your bike tuned up. I like to start walking through the race in each section. So swim, bike, run, and kind of make your list of all the things you need, anything you're missing, and kind of order those. I always like to replace my goggles, especially if you've been using them for a while and they're foggy. Charge and replace your power batteries, anything, or watch batteries, anything like that. Just make sure that you're kind of on top of all of those things. Confirm any reservations with hotel, flights, cars, whatever. And then start looking at the pre-race schedule, which I will go over, just so you have a feel for what you need to do on each day. Wanted to include a slide too on Madison logistics. I'm not sure if you guys have been here before, but this is kind of just some things to know about Madison that will kind of help you before you get to town. The Capitol and campus area, which is very near to where the race takes place, are very close together. So all walking distance, and everything is really centered around Monona Terrace for the race. So super convenient. You don't really need a car if you're staying downtown. So very easy to kind of navigate and get around. That being said, it is a very crowded part of town. So if you are driving, expect there's going to be some waiting, some delays. There's a big school here, there's government buildings here, there's just generally tourists on any normal weekend. So just be prepared to kind of wait if you're going out to eat in the area or driving. If you're staying on the east or west side, it is less crowded, easier to kind of park, go eat in and out quickly. And then if you're doing any pre-race workouts, the riding is great on the Lake Loop or Capital City Trail. If you need to do 30 minutes to an hour ride, I'd recommend those two if you're coming from downtown. And then pre-race swimming, you can swim right in Lake Monona at the swim start. It is a public lake though, so I recommend first thing in the morning to avoid like boats, jet skis, that kind of thing. Great. So race check-in logistics. Like I mentioned, everything will take place in this building right here. Not sure if you can see that cursor, but that building on the right is Monona Terrace. It's a community convention center right by Lake Monona, right downtown. There is parking available there, and that's where all of the kind of expo athlete activities will take place in transition. So once you know where that is, you're pretty much good to go. All of athlete check-in will be Thursday and Friday, 10 to 5 p.m. There's no Saturday check-in, so make sure you get there early enough. Just need your normal photo ID, QR code, all the normal things. And try to go to the athlete briefing while you are doing athlete check-in. There are 2 times each day on Thursday and Friday, so try and catch one of those while you're there. Cool. So once you check in at athlete check-in, you will get your race packet. If you've done another Ironman branded race, very familiar with the contents of that. It's going to have your race bib, all of your stickers for your bike, your swim cap, bike checkout ticket, which we'll talk about a little bit later, your athlete wristband, and then all of your gear bags, which we'll go into in detail. So Ironman's a little unique in that you have a lot of gear and a lot of gear bags. So these are color coded here on the right. And this information is also in the athlete guide. So don't feel like you need to memorize it or panic about what goes in what, but just a good overview quickly of what belongs in each bag. So morning clothes is basically anything you wear to or swim start before you put on your wetsuit, and anything you want after the race. You'll kind of drop that off in the morning near the swim start. And then your bike gear and your run gear, you're basically going to have to drop off on Saturday at Monona Terrace with bike check-in. And that's just everything you'll wear on your bike, anything you need for the run. So that will all get dropped off on Saturday. You also have the option for Ironman for bike special needs and run special needs. And basically that just is any extra items that you might want on the bike or the run. Generally like extra nutrition, any kind of spare parts on the bike. And then on the run, sometimes it might be cold. You might want like a long sleeve shirt, extra socks, whatever, just anything that'll make your race a little bit easier, put it in there. Don't put anything of value in there because it will not be returned. So generally, nothing super expensive. These are just like spare parts, spare nutrition. Also good to pack a Sharpie or to buy one because you'll need to write your number if there aren't stickers. Cool. So the day before the race, you're going to do all your final checks. Generally, if you're doing any sort of short workout, try and do that first thing in the morning or do that on Friday just to get it out of the way. Charge all your electronics, make sure everything is good to go. I like to set out everything I will need for race morning pretty early so that I feel, settled and set. And you've already dropped off your bags, so it should be pretty limited to just what you're going to wear and what you need for the swim, and any sort of like watches or heart rate straps. yeah, and then I like to think about race morning nutrition. So laying out what you're going to make for breakfast, so that it's, easy to access at 3 in the morning when you're out of it. And any kind of post-race snacks, if you're particular, I would include those too. Day before the race, generally this is a good feeling because you are completely settled and ready to go. So you're just going to want to relax, plan any race morning logistics. So if you have people dropping you off or you have a parking plan with your family, kind of go through those logistics early on in the day so that you have an idea of how you're getting to the start line. And then relax, early to bed, early small dinner, and yeah, get ready to go. Some notes about race morning nutrition. Again, this is super individualized. Do what you've practiced, do what's comfortable. But generally for breakfast, you want something super simple in carbohydrates. Stay on top of your fluid and electrolytes, not much protein, no fat, fiber, anything extra. QT2 does use something called the Coure diet, which has kind of recommended meal plans and race plans. And that breakfast is included here, just applesauce, banana, 1 scoop whey protein, sports drink, super simple, easy on stomach. And make sure you're eating that early enough, so 3 hours or so prior to the race start, so that you're not super full. Also bring some sports drink with you down to the race start. I like to just have like a disposable bottle with Gatorade in it, just sip on that until the race start. And then a gel or some other small snack right before the race start. Great. So some logistical notes about race morning. So if you're in the downtown area, super easy to walk to the swim start at Monona Terrace. I recommend doing that so that you don't have to park or deal with any sort of pre-race traffic. There is a shuttle for athletes and spectators at Alliant Energy Center, which is like a few miles away from downtown. There's a small parking fee, but that will be running pretty much all day Sunday up until Monday. So that's another option if you're coming from a different side of town. Transition is open from 5 a.m. to 6:45 a.m. So you have a good window in there to get settled. Good idea to review transition layout. So I always like to look at where the run in, run out, bike in, run out type layout of transition is, just so that I'm familiar with it and it's easier during the race. Another note is to drop off any special needs or morning clothes bags. And yeah, just apply sunscreen, especially if it's going to be a sunny day, and then keep on top of fueling. So now we'll talk about, the course overview. So just some general notes about the course here. The swim start is at Law Park by Monona Terrace. All of transition is basically in Monona Terrace. The swim is a 2-loop swim. It's rectangular in Lake Monona. And then the bike is 2 loops and the stick out of town. Road conditions are variable and bumpy. I'll dive into that a little bit later. And then the run is also 2 loops and mostly through downtown and campus and is rolling. Cool. So let's talk through the swim. So the swim starts at 7 a.m. It is 2 loops, and you can see right here that it's just a big rectangle. There is no exit between the loops, so you just keep swimming. Once you finish your first loop, you just keep going to the second loop. Like all Ironman races, I think at this point, it is a rolling start. So you'll basically line up based on your kind of estimated or projected finish time and go from there. Your race will basically start the minute you kind of cross that swim start line. Generally, this race is wetsuit legal. It's good to be prepared for anything though. It has been really hot here. So it has been like low 70s, I think, in the lake each week. So be ready for whatever the day throws at you. but wetsuits are permitted up into 76.1 degrees. Otherwise, you can wear a swim skin. If you do choose to wear a wetsuit above that temperature, you won't be eligible for awards and slots, as is normal at Ironman events. So be aware of that. I've been swimming in the lake every week, so I'm super familiar with like where the sun is in terms of when you're swimming, you're going to have it to your back on the way out. And then as you turn around, it's going to be kind of right in the sight line on the return portion. So I would definitely recommend tinted goggles if it's sunny, because the sun will be right in your face as you're sighting. Buoys on the right, they'll be yellow the first half, then orange the second half. Red turn buoys kind of on each of those angles of the rectangle. Is a big lake that is very exposed because Madison is on an isthmus. So there's kind of two lakes on each side. Does get pretty choppy if it's windy. I recommend kind of checking the race conditions out race morning to see where the wind is coming from and to look at any chop on the surface. It has been pretty calm the last few weeks, so chop has been pretty minimal, but it does get pretty choppy if it's windy. And so after the swim, you're going to basically just run up the helix of Monona Terrace into transition. Couple other swim tips. Like I mentioned earlier, check out the course conditions on race morning, for sun, see where the wind is coming from, how choppy it is. Self-seated rolling start. Couple ways to kind of pace the swim. So starting off quickly to kind of find feet and then settling into race effort. If you're an anxious swimmer, definitely start more conservative. It will be crowded, especially, at the beginning of the loop and then starting your second loop. Expect there to be people there. You might get hit, so don't worry if it happens. And then just using the other swimmers to kind of draft and sight off of, especially on that return loop into the sun. Much easier to follow people than to try and sight all of the buoys in that section. And then the last note, remember to increase your kick the last 100 to 200 yards just to prepare your legs for running. That way it's not a shock to the system, especially after a long swim like Ironman. Great. So now we'll dive into the bike course. So on the left is the map that's included in the athlete guide. You can kind of see the two loops, and then the stick is just that first section that comes out of town, out of transition. On the right, that's just the elevation profile from the Ironman course map. And then you can see I also included the Strava elevation profile, just to kind of give you like just a little bit more information of what that actually looks like if you go out and ride it. So a little bit less crunched like the Ironman map. So the bike course, 2 loops on the stick, 112 miles, about 4,500 to 6,000 feet of climbing. It really depends on the computer and like if it reads high or low in terms of elevation, but definitely hilly course. And I would say pretty rough road conditions, especially if you are not used to riding in kind of Wisconsin dairy roads. So be prepared to kind of have rough, bumpy conditions, especially when you're leaving town, which is the stick. Leaving transition, it is a very bumpy bike path. So make sure all your water bottles are secure, maybe slightly lower tire pressure just to kind of have a smoother ride because it is pretty bumpy out of there and through parts of the course. The loops of the bike course are rolling to steep hills. There aren't a lot of flats or descending. There are a couple steeper descents that are somewhat technical on Garfoot, and then the flatter portion is on Highway G. The steepest climbs, which I'll break down in a few minutes, are the Three Sisters, and that is Old Sauk, Timber, and Midtown. And those kind of are all in a sequential sequence right after each other. So that is definitely the steepest part of the course and the part to kind of be conservative on. After that, after you've done your 2 loops, you basically go back on the stick and you go back into town into transition. Some general tips about the bike course. Road condition again, variable, all sorts of all sorts of things in this bike course, but it really keeps it fun. So chip seal roads, there's some newer pavement, and then there is about a mile of gravel before the old sock climb. It's been getting a little bit less bumpy and bad every week, but it is something to be aware of. It's relative. They put it down a few weeks ago, so there is about a mile of gravel in there. You will not get bored. It's a very engaging course, a lot of turns, somewhat technical, lots of climbing, and yeah, just really keeps it interesting. A note about gearing, you will be switching your gearing a lot. It's not a course where you can kind of sit at the same power the whole time. It's very variable. So be prepared for that, and also be kind of cognizant about when you're switching from your big to your little chain ring. Super easy to drop a chain on this course because it's pretty bumpy on the descents, so that can happen. One other note about pacing, hold back on the first lap for sure, especially until you kind of get a feel for how hilly it is, especially since the hills don't come into the second part of the loop. So I would really hold back and kind of keep it easy, and then try and keep it consistent or faster on the second loop. Also be prepared for wind, because there are some sections, some of the flatter sections, that can get pretty windy. Cool. So I wanted to dive into the climbs of this course, because there are a few that are good to kind of be aware of when you have kind of a mental map of the bike course. So there are some steep hill climbs, and it's mostly through kind of rolling farm, cornfields, dairy. So really pretty, really scenic course. None of the climbs are super long. I would say, depending on your riding ability, you're not going to spend like more than 10 minutes on these climbs, but they are really steep and can be very draining, especially the second time you go through them on the second loop, if you went too hard the first time. So the first one is Mount Horeb. Mount Horeb is a city, and there's just kind of a long gradual climb to get up to the city. I do know that there's an aid station up there, so at least it'll be something to look forward to on that climb. But it is pretty exposed and can be windy. And then there's the Three Sisters, like I mentioned, on Old Sauk Timber in Midtown. Most of these are around 5-ish minutes climbs, but they're all really steep, and they're one right after each other within, like, I think maybe 15 miles. So yeah, they all start steep, level out, and then finish super steep. So something to be aware of. It's going to kind of feel really, 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 really steep, but then you get a little reprieve, and then it finishes steep. Included a little map here of what I'm talking about with, on the right, with Mount Horeb. You can kind of see where that is. There's a descent, and then it goes up to the Three Sisters on the right. These are just some Google Street views, just so you can get a feel of what it actually looks like when you're on a bike. The one on the left is Old Sauk. So you can see it's not like mountain climbing, but it is like, a pretty decent ascent there. Timber is the one in the middle, which you actually can't see the top of. So it's pretty steep, but it's short. And then Midtown is the one on the right. And it's a pretty long kind of, pretty long, steeper climb. And that's the last of the Three Sisters. Couple notes on bike fueling. So on the left, I have a map of where the aid stations are on the bike course, where those yellow stars are. And so you can see there's 3 per loop. There's one on the stick, and then there's a water only aid station. So about every 10 to 15 miles, which should mean that you're not going too long without kind of restocking on everything. The aid stations will have kind of the standard water, Gatorade Endurance. They do use Morton energy gels now, which have caffeine, non-caffeine options. And then they usually have some sort of bar, and then kind of fruit like bananas. You can also carry your own nutrition, and special needs will be set up somewhere near these aid stations. It didn't say in the athlete guide, but I presume they will mention that in the pre-race briefing. So find it there. And then a note just to be heads up and kind of careful at aid stations since they can be a little crowded and crazy. Just keep your head up. Cool. So note on bike pacing, which I mentioned a little bit with some of the breakdown of the hills. But if you use heart rate, just know that it will be very variable. For the hilly portions of the loops, I think, low zone 2, for those of you that use the QT2 heart rate system. Second loop, try and keep that even or just slightly higher effort if you can. Power, kind of similar thing where you're going to want to flatten out the course as much as possible. So going easier on the climbs and then kind of even on the flats. I will say you definitely probably 50 watts over expected Ironman power on the steep climbs. It's really hard not to. I'm always spinning up in kind of my lowest gear and wishing I had one more gear. That's kind of how steep they are when they're steep. So just expect to kind of spin up those ascents that are on the steeper parts of the course. I also have a note to not overdo the stick out of town. People generally get really excited. It's not a super hilly part of the course. And so I think people can kind of overcook the stick and then get to the loops and be like, oh, wow, this is really hard. So don't go too hard there. And then as always, pace is affected by wind, by climbing, by weather. So just kind of keep that race pace effort in mind and keep it between that 5 and 7 on a scale of 10. And then let's talk through bike equipment options. So tri-bike or road bike. I do think this is one of the better courses for a road bike. Some people think they climb better with the road bike and it's more comfortable. And I think for this course, not a huge, I don't think it will be that much slower than a tri-bike, especially if you prefer it. So I don't think it's a terrible idea for this course, but obviously a tri-bike will be a little bit faster. Gearing, again, if you've been training on hills, no need to do any bike changes for this. I do recommend like an 1128 cassette. I use an 1132, and for the steeper climbs, I feel like I'm able to spin up, but I probably wouldn't go below like an 1128, just for comfort. Wheel choice, again, depends on your preferences, depend on what you like to ride. I personally would not ride a disc on this course. I think it's a little bit heavy, and probably, unless you're used to riding it on really hilly courses, I probably wouldn't recommend it. I do plan to use race wheels though, so I think those are a good idea. And unless it's super windy, just kind of, pick what makes sense for your comfort level. Little bit about penalties for the bike. This is standard with all 70.3 and Ironman, so won't spend too much time on it. Blue card is for drafting violations, 5-minute penalty. Yellow card is blocking. There will be a penalty tent. It's normally at the end of the bike where you need to stop if you were shown a card. Littering violation, same thing, blue card. And then no cell phones or kind of music players or outside assistance. Can unzip the top of your race kit. It just needs to be connected on the bottom or completely rolled down if you're one with a sports bra. And then no crossing the finish line with non-racers. Okay, let's dive into the run, which this is a really fun spectator-filled run course, so it's super nice. It's a 2-loop course. It is rolling. It's kind of a mix of terrain. You kind of go through neighborhoods, you go through city. There's a little bit of packed gravel, but nothing too intense. And you get some lake views, so just a really good mix of everything in a city run. Um, in terms of hills, there's a bigger hill around the Capitol. So the Capitol's on a hill and you kind of run around Capitol Square and then run down. And then the biggest hill is on Observatory, which is on campus. Super kind of steep, longer hill, which you get to run down, but you only run it once each loop. So nothing too terrible there. And yeah, tons of spectators out, especially on State Street, and lots of just variability and turns to keep you keep you preoccupied. In terms of sun and shade, I would say there's a mixture. There's some exposed bike paths and kind of streets, but then you also get some shade around campus. So a good mixture and nothing too long that's exposed. And then just here on the bottom is the elevation map. So it says like 600, 700 feet. And I feel like that's probably right for the whole course. So about 300 per loop. Just included some recent photos. I took these last weekend, just a few spots around the run course. And these are all just downtown area. You can see the gravel section in this third middle photo with the trees. So you can see it's really packed gravel. It's nothing that you need to be worried about or need special shoes for. You can just wear normal race shoes, whatever you normally race in, and that should be fine for the gravel section. And then the other photos are just campus, so Library Mall, and then State Street. So pretty good pavement overall, nothing too crazy. And so aid stations for the run, it's going to be every mile to a mile and a half. It looks like about 7 per loop, which I guess you would hit multiple times for a couple of these. But yeah, just designated by the yellow stars again. Going to be very similar to the bike course in that they're going to have water, they're going to have Gatorade Endurance. They also have Red Bull and Coke for some caffeine, and then just a wider assortment of snacks and chips and fruit. And then also ice and sponges, which is very needed on a hot day. Again, you can also carry your own nutrition, pick up at special needs. Just a note about run pacing. Again, for heart rate, it's kind of what you've been practicing in training, but generally 5 to 10 beats higher than what you would have averaged on the bike. Probably don't need to check that after the first few miles, but just as a way to make sure that you're not starting too fast and with a too high of heart rate. Power, kind of same thing. Try and keep it even, keep your effort even. Don't overdo any downhills. There is a downhill coming out of transition. So especially with the spectators around the Capitol, super easy to overcook that mile. So just hold back in the first mile. Don't overdo the downhill and shred your quads. Just kind of keep it conservative. And then pace, similar note, keep it in check the first couple miles, especially with all the crowds on State Street and the Capitol, and then just kind of settle into what feels sustainable and try and use the spectator energy as much as possible. I think this is probably like the best supported run course in terms of North American Ironmans. So a lot of energy, a lot of people out, and should be pretty fun. Mental fitness, always good to talk about with the run because it can be pretty long and lonely. But I like to focus on the big picture and thinking about kind of a process checklist of what you have control over. So thinking about your attitude, thinking about the spectators, your family, everyone who's out supporting you. And then kind of going through your fuel plan. So each aid station, making sure you're getting what you need, you're drinking enough, you're eating enough, and you're kind of following a schedule. Some people really like to use like targets and thinking about outcomes and goals, and that's really motivating. Whatever it is, just kind of have a rotation of things that work for you and be willing to switch if something isn't going to plan. And then, yeah, show your appreciation, say thank you to supporters and family members and whoever else is out there. Did include some information about time cutoffs. I didn't include the intermediate time cutoffs just because the slide was a little bit packed. All of that can be found in the athlete guide and is pretty consistent between other Ironman races. Everyone will have 17 hours to complete the entire race, and there's kind of these intermediate checkpoints at the swim, bike, and run. But everyone will have the same amount of time to complete each portion. Swim course closes 2 hours and 20 minutes after the last athlete enters the water via the rolling start. Bike course, 10 hours and 30 minutes after the last athlete enters the water. I do know there's an intermediate checkpoint of when they won't let you start the second loop, so that's something to be aware of. And then the run course will close 17 hours after the last athlete enters the water. Yeah, so all standard. A note for spectators, anyone who's following your race can use the Ironman athlete tracking app. Really the best thing because it shows those intermediate updates, especially on the run and the bike. And a lot of just areas for spectating in this race. So for the swim, Monona Terrace and kind of the helix running up to transition are really good spots. They'll be able to see the whole swim, see you run out from the swim exit. And then the bike, really initially out of transition, is probably the best. There is a spectator shuttle that goes out to Verona, which is where like the main bike loop goes. So if your family is interested in seeing part of the bike, that's an option as well. And then the run, super spectator friendly. State Street campus, there'll be a ton of people out there. Capitol Square will be for when you pass to do your second loop and into the finish line. So that's another good spot. Post race. So gear checkout is from 6 p.m. to midnight. You have to have your wristband, or if someone else is picking up your bike, make sure they have your bike checkout ticket. Super fun race to cheer at. So definitely I recommend coming back out to cheer in. The other people are finishing after you. It's a big party. And then there's slot allocation and awards on Monday morning at 9:30, again at Monona Terrace. The latest on slots is that there are 60 knee slots for women, 20 Kona slots for men. And generally the awards and slot allocation are back to back. Morning clothes bag pickup is at bike pickup. So you'll actually have to do that post race. It's not on Monday morning. It will be on Sunday night. So when you pick up your bike, pick up your morning clothes. Yeah, and I also recommend just exploring Madison. Super fun town, really good restaurants and kind of nearby state parks. Just a lot to see, especially in the summer when it's nice out. And try some of the local food. Awesome. And you can always follow QT2 Systems on all the normal social media channels. Questions?
Thank you so much, Taylor. If anyone does have any questions, you are welcome to come off mute and ask them. Otherwise, Taylor's contact information is here. This will be posted up on the YouTube channel, and you're welcome to watch it again at any point, and you can ask questions right in the YouTube channel as well if you'd like to. All right, thanks, Taylor, so much for doing this and for bringing all of your local knowledge. It's always fun listening to these and getting excited about what the course looks like. So hope you get some not crazy stormy weather like last year. And
yeah, let's hope so.
Yeah. Well, maybe not 99 either. So
yeah, I was about to say 75 and sunny.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, everyone have a great night and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys.